There is a type of wood that produces more heat per pound than coal. It grows wild across the continent. You cut it down and it grows back. Never replant it and never water it. The energy industry spent a century making sure you never learned its name. And by the end of this video, you will know 5 trees you can plant in your yard that will heat your home for free forever. Before the first oil well was drilled in Titusville, Pennsylvania in 1859, before the first commercial coal mine opened in Virginia, humans had already solved the energy problem. The solution was so simple it barely qualified as technology. You cut a tree near the ground. Instead of dying, the stump sends up multiple new shoots. Those shoots grow faster than the original tree because the root system is already mature underground. A few years later, you cut those shoots for firewood. The cycle repeats. Same stumps, same roots, decade after decade. Some coppice stools in the woodlands of southern England have been documented at over 300 years old, still producing harvestable wood, still sending up vigorous new growth every time they are cut back. This was not a clever trick invented by one culture. This was the default energy system of the Western world for most of recorded history. Every village in medieval England, France, and Germany maintained designated woodlands managed on a strict rotation. Families did not buy fuel, they grew it. Cut a section of the communal woods this winter and move to the next section the following year. By the time you circle back to the first section, it has fully regrown. English common law protected coppice rights with the same legal weight that modern law protects mineral rights. Fuel was not a commodity you purchased. It was a perpetual crop that required no replanting, no fertilizer, and no annual expense. Then the Industrial Revolution changed everything. It did not simply introduce coal and oil as new options, it actively dismantled the system that came before. Coppice woodlands across England were cleared for factory sites and railway corridors. Ancient fuel forests in France and Germany were converted to agricultural fields. The knowledge of which trees to grow, when to harvest, how to manage a rotation, that knowledge was generational, passed from parent to child. Within 2 generations, it was nearly gone. The fuel that grew itself was replaced by the fuel you had to buy every month for the rest of your life. Think about what that means in pure economic terms. A tree that regrows after you cut it generates 0 recurring revenue. 0 recurring revenue attracts 0 corporate investment. 0 corporate investment means 0 advertising budget. And 0 advertising means 3 generations of families grow up without ever learning that the most productive fuel plants on Earth are growing at the edge of their property. The average American household spends over $2,000 per year on home heating, gas bills arriving every January, oil delivery trucks pulling into driveways across New England, propane tanks being refilled in rural Missouri and Tennessee and Kentucky. The utility companies and fossil fuel distributors depend on those payments arriving without interruption. A permanent free fuel source that regrows in your backyard is not just competition, it is an existential threat. And the research gap tells the whole story. Search any scientific database for petroleum energy studies, and you will find tens of thousands of papers, billions in government and corporate funding, entire university departments built around fossil fuel extraction. Now search for coppice firewood production research. You will find a few hundred papers scattered across forestry journals from Sweden, Poland, Ireland, and Brazil. The tree that heats itself was deemed irrelevant because it could not generate shareholder returns. But the trees did not disappear. They kept growing. And here on Garden Explained with Harry, we are going to walk through 5 of them. If this is your first time here, this channel covers practical growing knowledge that actually changes how you live. Hit subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. The first is willow. Willow is the tree that professional fuel producers in Northern Europe actually use when they decide to grow energy instead of drilling for it. Sweden has been running coppiced willow operations since the 1980s. The town of Enköping in central Sweden manages roughly 80 hectares of willow plantations that feed directly into the municipal heating plant. That system heats the town, and it simultaneously filters the town's wastewater through the willow root beds, one tree species solving two infrastructure problems for an entire community. The production numbers explain why they chose it. A well-managed willow plantation yields between 8 and 18 tons of dry fuel chips per hectare per year. During the first growing season, a willow stem can reach 4 meters in height. Cut it back to the stump in winter, and it sends up multiple new stems that grow even faster the second cycle. The root network is already massive. The stored energy underground is already waiting to push new growth. And willow does not need good land. It thrives in conditions that would drown corn or soybeans or wheat, wet soil, poor drainage, boggy margins along streams and farm ponds. The saturated corners of your property that produce nothing but mosquitoes and frustration. That ground is not wasted space. It is a fuel lot waiting to happen. Picture this: a field of willow rods standing 12 feet tall after just 2 years of growth. Thousands of straight uniform stems packed tight together like a living wall of stored energy. A farmer with a brush cutter can harvest the entire stand in a single afternoon. Stack it, chip it, feed it into a wood-burning boiler. Heat a farmhouse through the worst January the Midwest can deliver. Plant a willow stand once and harvest every 2 to 3 years from the same root system for up to 30 years before you even consider replanting. The energy content of 1 hectare of willow wood at 20% moisture equals roughly 4,500 liters of home heating oil. That is operational data from farms across Ireland and the United Kingdom that have been running this system for years. Sweden proved coppiced willow works for heating entire towns. Ireland proved it works at small farm scale, and nobody exported this knowledge to the American homeowner. Because there is no profit in a tree you plant once and heat your home with for 3 decades. The second tree is black locust. It violates the fundamental rules of forestry. There's a general principle that every forester learns early. Fast-growing trees produce soft, low-energy wood. Slow-growing trees produce dense, high-energy wood. You get speed or you get quality, never both. Black locust ignores this completely. It is a hardwood that grows with the speed of a softwood. In its early years, it can add 4 feet of height per growing season, and the wood it produces is among the densest and hottest burning in North America. A cord of black locust delivers 29.3 million British thermal units of heat. That places it alongside white oak and shagbark hickory in the top tier of North American firewood. But here is what separates black locust from those hardwoods. It reaches harvestable size in a fraction of the time, and it burns extraordinarily clean. Very little smoke, very little ash, almost zero creosote buildup in your chimney flue. Creosote is the tarry residue that causes chimney fires. A wood that burns hot and produces almost none of it is measurably safer for your home. But the real advantage lives underground. This tree is a legume. Like soybeans and clover, it hosts bacteria in its root nodules that pull nitrogen directly from the atmosphere and deposit it into the soil. Every other fuel tree takes nutrients from the ground. Black locust puts nutrients back. It does not deplete the land, it enriches it year after year, harvest after harvest, and it spreads on its own. Black locust reproduces by sending up shoots from its lateral root system. Cut 1 tree down in November, and by June the stump has produced a cluster of vigorous new stems. The surrounding roots have pushed up fresh saplings across the nearby ground. You do not need to replant. The tree replants itself. A single planting becomes a self-expanding fuel lot that grows denser with every passing year. The practical math works even on modest land. A managed coppice rotation yields roughly 1/3 to 1/2 cord of firewood per acre per year on a permanent basis. A family might need only 2 or 3 acres of black locust to cut their winter fuel costs significantly, and the trees are already out there, growing along fence lines in Ohio and Indiana, filling abandoned pastures across West Virginia, lining highway medians from Pennsylvania to Missouri. Most people who drive past them every day think they are trash trees. They see the thorny branches and the peeling bark, and they assume it is junk wood not worth the effort. They could not be more wrong. The third tree sounds like it should not exist in nature. It has been cultivated in China and Japan for over 2,000 years. Paulownia is the fastest growing hardwood tree that most Westerners have never heard of. Under favorable conditions, young Paulownia trees can grow 8 to 15 feet in a single growing season. A seedling planted in April can be taller than your garage roof by October. In Japan, this tree has been woven into daily life for centuries. Craftsmen use the lightweight but strong wood to build tansu storage chests and musical instruments. In traditional Japanese households, when a daughter was born, the family would plant a Paulownia tree. By the time she married, the tree had grown large enough to be harvested and made into a furniture chest for her new home. That tradition continued for generations. The Paulownia tree became so culturally significant that its flower appears on the official seal of the Prime Minister of Japan, a tree honored at the highest level of government in one country and virtually unknown to homeowners in another. In the West, Paulownia has been almost completely overlooked, and that is a remarkable oversight given what this tree can produce. Paulownia runs on a different fuel strategy than the denser hardwoods. The wood is lighter, so it does not burn as hot per pound, but the sheer volume of growth per year more than compensates. Paulownia plantations produce 60 to 80 tons of harvestable material per hectare in a short rotation cycle. Cut the tree and the stump regenerates. A single planting can sustain 5 to 9 complete harvest cycles before the root system needs replacing. With every cut, the roots that remain are bigger and the new growth returns faster. And then there are the numbers that make fossil fuel companies uncomfortable. A single hectare of actively growing Paulownia absorbs roughly 100 tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere every year, while releasing 75 tons of fresh oxygen. The tree pulls carbon from the air as it grows. You burn the wood and release that carbon. The tree regrows and pulls the same carbon right back out of the sky. A closed loop. Free heat that adds nothing new to the atmosphere over time. Compare that to a natural gas furnace. Every cubic foot of gas you burn releases carbon that was locked underground for millions of years. That carbon enters the atmosphere and stays there. There is no regrowth cycle, no recapture. It is a one-way transfer from deep geology to open sky. The Paulownia loop is fundamentally different. The fourth tree is hiding in plain sight on the largest scale imaginable. If you need proof that growing fuel from trees works at industrial levels, look at Brazil. Brazil is the world's largest producer of charcoal, over 10 million tons every single year, and the vast majority comes from one type of tree, Eucalyptus. The country manages roughly 7.8 million hectares of planted eucalyptus forests. That is an area larger than Ireland. The land is dedicated to growing trees, cutting them, converting them to fuel, and growing them again from the same stumps. This is not a pilot program. This is one of the largest fuel production operations on Earth, and it runs entirely on a tree that coppices. A well-managed eucalyptus plantation produces roughly 4.5 times more energy per acre per year than a traditionally managed timber forest in the United States. Same land area, 4.5 times the output, and the mechanism is the same one that powered medieval English woodlands. Coppicing. Cut the tree. The stump sends up new shoots powered by the established root system. Those shoots grow faster than any fresh seedling. Cut, regrow. Now the obvious objection, eucalyptus is tropical and many say it cannot survive frost. That is partly true and partly outdated. Cold-tolerant varieties have been developed that grow successfully in USDA Zone 7 and even parts of Zone 6. That includes the Gulf Coast, the southeastern states from the Carolinas through Georgia and Alabama, much of Texas, and the Pacific Coast from San Francisco southward. For tens of millions of Americans, this species is a viable backyard fuel tree right now. Brazil built an entire industry on this principle, and they published the research openly. And somehow the country that consumes more residential energy per household than nearly any nation on Earth never adopted the model. The knowledge has been sitting there for decades. It was simply never promoted. Because promoting a free, perpetual fuel source does not generate revenue for anyone who sells fuel. The fifth tree is the one this video opened with, the one that burns hotter than coal. Osage orange produces 32.9 million BTUs of heat per cord of firewood. That is the highest heating value of any commonly available wood species in North America. The energy density per pound is comparable to anthracite coal. People who burn Osage orange report that it can get hot enough to warp the cast iron of the firebox itself if loaded too aggressively. It produces almost no smoke, very little ash, superb coals that radiate heat for hours after the visible flame dies down. The heartwood is the most decay-resistant of any North American timber species and functionally immune to termite damage. You can cut Osage orange, split it, stack it outdoors in rain and snow, and come back 3 years later to find it in nearly perfect condition. A fuel that stores itself without shelter, without treatment. And it is everywhere. In the 1800s, before barbed wire existed, American settlers on the Great Plains needed living fences strong enough to contain cattle across open, treeless prairie. They found Osage orange. The thorny, interlocking branches grew so dense that farmers described the hedgerows as horse-high, bull-strong, and pig-tight. Thousands of miles of living Osage orange fence were planted from Texas to Iowa. By 1948, Kansas alone had over 96,000 miles of Osage orange hedgerows. Then, Joseph Glidden patented barbed wire in 1874. Cheaper, faster, easier to install, and overnight the most useful tree on the Great Plains became obsolete. But the trees were already in the ground, in every state. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt recognized the value during the Dust Bowl. His Great Plains Shelter Belt project, launched in 1934, planted over 220 million trees in windbreaks stretching 18,600 miles across the prairie. Osage orange was one of the primary species. The federal government deliberately planted 220 million of these trees as a matter of national survival, and then America forgot about them. Today, county road crews cut Osage orange hedgerows to clear sightlines. Farmers in Kansas bulldoze them for extra soybean rows. Suburban developers in Missouri push them out for housing lots. The bumpy green fruits that drop every October get kicked aside or thrown in the garbage. The tree has no place in the modern timber economy because it was never designed to fit a system built on annual transactions and repeat purchases. But cut one down. Watch what happens the following spring. The stump erupts with vigorous new stems, multiple shoots, fast and aggressive, powered by a root system that may be decades old. Every stem carries the same 32.9 million BTUs per cord, the same heat that rivals coal, the hottest burning wood in North America, planted by the federal government across all 48 contiguous states, growing wild in every hedgerow and abandoned farmstead from Michigan to Texas, and nobody told you to burn it. That changes today. Now here is what to do with everything you just learned. Building a backyard fuel lot does not require heavy equipment, forestry training, or 100 acres. It requires seedlings, a basic plan, and the patience to let biology do the heavy work. Choose your tree based on what your land gives you. If you have wet, boggy ground that floods every spring, plant willow. If you have dry, thin ground that bakes in summer and freezes in winter, plant black locust. It will fix its own nitrogen and improve the soil while producing some of the hottest burning firewood on the continent. If you live in the American South or along the Gulf Coast, Paulownia or Eucalyptus will outproduce anything else in the same time. And if you are anywhere in the temperate United States and you have an old hedgerow with those ugly green fruits on the ground every October, you already have Osage orange. You do not need to plant a single thing. Plant dense. This is not ornamental landscaping. This is fuel production. Black locust coppice works well at 8 by 8 foot spacing. Willow can go tighter. A quarter-acre lot can hold enough trees to make a real difference in your heating costs within a few years. Divide your planting into 3 or 4 sections. Cut one section each winter. Rotate through them in order. By the time you circle back to the first section, it has regrown. This is the same rotation principle that every medieval village in Europe practiced. Cut, regrow, cut, regrow. The root system strengthens with each cycle. Harvest in late fall or early winter after the leaves have dropped. The energy is concentrated in the dense wood. The moisture content is at its lowest. Cut to within a few inches of the ground. The stumps will send up multiple new shoots the following spring, and those shoots will grow faster than any fresh seedling because they draw on a root network already established in the earth. Season the cut wood before you burn it. Stack it off the ground with airflow on all sides. Dense hardwoods like black locust and Osage orange need 12 to 18 months of open air drying. Lighter species like Willow and Paulownia dry faster. Split the rounds while the wood is still green. Let time and moving air do the rest. Do not overlook the secondary benefits. A coppice lot is not just a fuel source. It is a windbreak that shields your home from bitter January gusts and cuts your heating demand before you even light the stove. It is habitat for songbirds and pollinators that improve every garden and orchard within flying distance. It is a privacy screen that grows thicker and more effective every year. The fuel is the primary output, but the side benefits accumulate quietly in ways that no gas furnace or oil tank will ever provide. Now look at the numbers. The energy industry does not want you to calculate. A cord of firewood costs $250 to $400 at retail. A household heating with wood burns 4 to 8 cords per winter. That is $1,000 to $3,200 per year. Heating oil in New England runs over $2,000 per season. Natural gas across the Midwest costs $1,500 or more. Every winter, the news covers another ice storm that knocks out power for a week. Families sitting in cold, dark houses waiting for the utility company. A cord of Osage orange and a wood stove means you never sit in the dark, wondering when someone is coming to help. A backyard coppice system costs the price of seedlings in year 1. Black locust from State Forestry Nurseries sells for as little as 35 cents per seedling. Willow cuttings can often be sourced for free. After that first spring, the annual cost is $0. Not reduced, not subsidized, $0 every year, for as long as the root systems survive, which is measured in decades. Compare this to what goes into making sure you never figure it out. The fossil fuel industry spends billions every year on exploration, pipelines, refinery infrastructure, and advertising. Think of the natural gas commercials during football games and the oil company logos on every gas station canopy from Maine to California. All of that exists for one purpose: to keep fuel in the category of things you purchase, rather than things you grow on your own land. State agricultural extension offices publish detailed guides on growing corn and soybeans and managing commercial timber. They do not publish guides on growing your own firewood. No extension agent will visit your property and explain that a quarter acre of black locust could eliminate your heating bill permanently. That visit does not happen because no budget line rewards it. They do not need to ban coppicing or outlaw backyard fuel production. They simply need to do nothing. As long as the knowledge stays buried in Scandinavian forestry papers and Appalachian homesteading forums, the default remains unchanged. You pay your heating bill every month, every winter, every year. Meanwhile, the trees are being actively destroyed. Osage orange hedgerows that Roosevelt planted are being bulldozed for soybean fields in Kansas. Black locust stands along Virginia highways are sprayed with herbicide. Willow wetlands in Ohio are drained for subdivision foundations. Paulownia is classified as invasive in several eastern states and cleared from roadsides despite outproducing every native timber species in the same region. They are spending public money to destroy trees that produce free fuel forever. The global home heating market moves hundreds of billions of dollars every year. Furnace manufacturers in Michigan, oil refineries along the Gulf Coast, pipeline operators in Texas and Pennsylvania, propane distributors running fleets of tanker trucks across every rural county. Every link in that chain depends on one assumption: that fuel is something extracted from the ground, processed in a facility, and delivered by a company that sends a monthly invoice. 500 years ago, a farmer in Sussex, England, would have found that assumption absurd. His fuel grew on the village commons and regenerated after every harvest. 200 years ago, a homesteader in Kentucky would have laughed at the idea of paying for heat. The black locust along her fence line gave her posts that outlasted her grandchildren, and firewood that warmed the cabin every winter without a single payment. Somewhere between then and now, the knowledge was quietly set aside. Not stolen, not outlawed, just allowed to fade while a more profitable system took its place. The trees do not have supply chain disruptions. Willow does not respond to natural gas futures. Black locust is not affected by OPEC production meetings. Paulownia does not fluctuate with the price of heating oil. Eucalyptus does not require a pipeline from 1,000 miles away. And Osage orange does not send an invoice. They are growing right now in the hedgerows along county roads in Iowa, in the wet ditches beside dairy farms in Oregon, in abandoned lots in West Virginia where the coal company closed the mine and never came back, in old fence lines between soybean fields in Illinois, in suburban backyards from Connecticut to California where homeowners mow around them every summer and never once look down. A willow cutting pushed into wet soil this April will be taller than you by September. A black locust seedling planted along your property line will be producing harvestable fuel within 5 years. An Osage orange stump that someone cut down last November is already sending up new shoots right now. Whether anyone notices or not, the stumps still sprout, the roots still push deeper, the wood still burns hotter than what you are paying for. These trees will keep growing long after the gas pipelines rust through, after the propane trucks stop running your road, and after the power grid fails on the coldest night of the year. The only thing that changed is who convinced you to stop using them. Oh, and if longevity fascinates you, my friend runs a channel called The Centenarian's Garden, all about blue zone secrets and what actually helps people live past 100. Go check them out. You won't regret it.